everyone, this is Christine from Ambassador Crochet. Earlier today I had gone live in my group for a Tunisian tutorial on the Tunisian simple stitch, and my internet kept cutting out, so I am recording this and I will upload this as a backup for those that just there's like my internet was cutting out and there's words skipped and everything else. So this will be a better tutorial of how to do the Tunisian simple stitch, and we were working on a washcloth. So I'm going to start this. I won't go into as much detail. I went through some tips and stuff like that on the live video in my group, but I will just do the basic how to get through the stitches on the Tunisian simple stitch for the washcloth. So you're going to start with a basic slip knot, and I am using worsted weight cotton. And I went up 2 hook sizes, which is about what you should. Some people go up 3, depending on their tension. So the yarn I was using called for an H, so I went up to a J. I also am making it in DK weight, and it called for an 8, a G hook, and I went up to an I believe, on this one. Actually, yes, an I. I went up to an I hook. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to chain 18, and you just chain the way you would normally start any crochet project if you're starting it with any multiple stitches. So I'm going to chain 18. Okay, let me count this and make sure it's 18. So we have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18. Okay, so we have 18 chains. And with Tunisian, the easiest way to prevent this curling, if you notice, this curls a little bit. I just helped it along, but that's part of Tunisian. This stitch happens to be the worst for that. But one of the ways to help with that is to actually work into the back loops. So you're going to skip the first chain, and you're going to work into, you're going to pull up a loop in the back loop of the second chain. So you'll end up, and Tunisian, you pull up a loop and you leave all your loops on the hook, similar to knitting. We were going over that in the video. Some of the stitches are called the same thing. So you have the Tunisian knit stitch, you have the Tunisian purl stitch, and they actually look like the knit and purl stitch from knitting, which is why they're called that. Some stitches are very different. Some stitches look the same as knitting. It's a similar look, a similar concept. The one major difference I have noticed over the years is that Tunisian crochet is one-sided. And by one-sided, I mean the stitches don't look the same on both sides. Like in crochet, a lot of times if you were just to do double crochet all the way around, you know, back and forth, it would have a similar look throughout the whole thing. You could reverse it, you know, if you weren't working in the round on specific things. You could just, it could be reversible. It would be very similar. I will show you this. So Tunisian simple stitch, this is what the simple stitch looks like. If I flip this over, it is a very different look. It does not look the same. So does it look bad? No, but it's not, it's just definitely not a reversible pattern. But I made an Afghan. I didn't use this stitch, but I used, I believe, the purl stitch. I can look that up. I believe the purl stitch. And again, it is a very different look. Here, I'll even show you. I used this stitch. Oh, actually, it's the knit stitch, not the purl stitch. I had to look at it to see. I made an Afghan in this for my daughter. It's like a weighted blanket. It's very different on one side than it is the other, but I used striped yarn and it looks amazing. It's on my website for free. It's called the Vineyard Throw, and it has a really cool look with the striped yarn, because all these back sections, I could pull it apart and you can see. So all these back rows were actually different colors, and it just came out really, really cool. It looks good. So it's not a bad thing. It's just something to be aware of as you work through Tunisian. Okay, so let's go back to this. Let's pull up our 18 loops. You'll pull up 17, and then that first one you did not have to do anything with, but you'll still end up with 18 loops on your hook. And my chains are a little tight down this end. Okay, so now we have all of our loops on the hook. Now you could, if you want to make this a baby blanket, you could chain 200, and all you would have to do is just push them all down here and bunch them up, and you'd still have all that space to keep adding stitches. You can pretty much, that's the great thing about Tunisian. Okay, so to work these off, we're going to do, so this was called a forward pass, and when you pull all these loops up and put them on the hook, it's called a forward pass. So every row has a forward pass and a return pass. So the return pass is normally, almost always, it's yarn over, pull through 1, and that's the equivalent of like a chain stitch when you work on, if you were to do a single crochet washcloth, you would, at the beginning of a row, you would chain 1 to get that hook up to the height of the next row. So basically, in essence, that's what we're doing here. We're doing the chain 1 to get that hook up higher, and then we're going to yarn over, and we're going to pull through 2. And we're going to yarn over, and we're going to pull through 2. And we're going to do that all the way across. And that's how we're going to work the stitches off the hook. So you just yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. And again, some patterns, some designers come up with like a different return pass, however they want it to work with their pattern. You know, if they're decreasing stitches, increasing stitches, or they just want it to look unique. That is just a general rule of thumb. It's kind of like a single crochet is always a single crochet. A return pass is normally this way unless it's a different stitch. Okay, so this is the end of row 1, and we have, it is normal to have all these, I don't know if you can see these spaces actually, if I take my fingers off. You can see them. We have vertical bars, which there is like a loop. There's a front and a back. So it's like a section of loops. So when you pulled it up on the hook, that's what was on the hook. And then these blue ones, actually this is a good yarn to use because these blue ones show you the return pass. Okay, so the white and even these few red ones was what we put on the hook, and the blue was the return pass that we took off the hook. And that's what the end of row 1 will look like. And almost all projects start with that. That is just row 1. Again, that's the standard way of starting a Tunisian project. Okay, now we're going to start the Tunisian simple stitch. This first stitch, you don't ever have to work into this first stitch. It always stays on your hook, and you're just going to use that all the way up. So all the way up, it's going to look the same. And what, by doing that and not working a stitch into it, you will end up with a finished edge. Here, I'll turn it sideways so you can see. So it's a finished edge. It looks like you have a border there, and you don't really have to do anything. And that would be the left side of your project. So what we're going to do is we're going to insert the hook behind the vertical bar, the second vertical bar. So the first one is underneath the one that's already on your hook. You can skip that one. So the next one, you're going to go behind the vertical bar, and you're going to yarn over, and you're going to pull up a loop. And then you're going to do that all the way across. You're going to insert the hook behind the vertical bar, yarn over, and pull up a loop. And we're going to work that all the way across. And I'm going to say, try to remember to pull this up to the height of the hook. I tend to just want to go across, and then like the hook is actually on the top of my project, and it's not, or like on the front. And so my stitches end up really tight, and I have to remind myself to pull that hook up so that you don't get that curling effect. That's another thing that will help with that curling, is to make sure your stitches are looser, which is why some people go up the 3rd hook size. It's just another good way of, you know, having that space there. I try to only go up 2 hook sizes and remind myself, because I tend to, if I go up 3 hook sizes, I feel like the fabric sometimes ends up a little more open than I like. So this keeps it looking the way I want, without, but it's just that mental reminder. Even me, I have to remind myself. So we're going to work this across, and then we're going to get to that last, so we're going to get to the end. So now we have 17 loops on the hook. Okay, I'm pulling them up straight because I was tight. And then we're going to get to this last one. Okay, on the last one, the pattern will say work through both loops. So the concept of this is, if you could do it the same way you've done all these and just pull up that last loop right there. Or what my pattern is going to tell you is go through that one, but there's another one, the back one. Go through the back one as well. So see how I have 2 on there for that last one? You're going to work through the front vertical bar and the back vertical bar, and you're going to yarn over, and you're going to yarn over, and you're going to pull up a loop. And what that will do on the finished project is it will create the border on the other side. So you won't need that finished border. If you didn't do this, you would have to have a border. It would look kind of silly. It wouldn't, well, not silly, but it just wouldn't look finished. So by doing that, you kind of already have your border, and you don't really have to do anything with it if you don't want to. So you will end up with 4 finished sides, and you won't have to put that border on there when you're done. Okay, let's work off. We're gonna work this off. So we're gonna chain 1, or a lot of patterns don't call it a chain 1. They'll say yarn over, pull through 1, and then yarn over, pull through 2. And we're gonna do that yarn over, pull through 2 all the way across. And try to remember tension, especially if you're new at this. I took a couple years off from Tunisian and then picked it back up, I think last year when I made my sweater. I think it was last year. And my blanket and stuff. And I literally had to like retrain my brain, like relax, even though I crochet all the time. It's just a different, especially because I'm a pencil holder, so I tend to hold my regular crochet hooks like this. So to switch this way to Tunisian, it just feels weird, and you would think I would just hold it the same way for both, but I can't. Okay, so I'm going to do one more row just so we make this project a little bit bigger so it's easier to show you the bind off row. So you can just keep, if you're just going to, for this washcloth, we're just going to strictly do Tunisian simple stitch. It'll be listed as TSS in the pattern. And we will work the whole washcloth this way. So you're going to repeat the rows. When I have this up on my blog, hopefully tomorrow morning, it will have the stitch counts and the row counts for both the DK weight yarn and for the worsted weight. And what you'll do, what you can do is you can make this a washcloth, a face cloth, a dishcloth, whatever you want to do. If you want, you could do them in acrylic and make Afghan squares, and then you could, you know, piece them together and make in different colors or different stitches when we're done with this month, and make like a baby blanket, or do extras and make a full-size blanket like a sampler. Okay, so we have another row on here. So I'm gonna yarn over, pull through 1, and then yarn over, pull through 2 all the way across. And then when I get to the end of this row, I mean, obviously this isn't the end of the dishcloth, but when I get to the end of this row, we're going to work the next row we are going to do as a bind off row. That way you will have a tutorial on how to do that last row when you get that far. so you don't have to wait for next week. And then next week we can just work on a different stitch. And I will be doing this every Tuesday at noon. Hopefully next week my internet will not be giving me a hard time. Okay, so we don't want to finish our project this way because we have these open stitches. So we have to close this off so that it looks like a finished project. Okay, so a bind off is, it's a knitting term, and I don't knit, so I can't tell you if there's a technical reason it's called that. We call fasten off is normally a crochet term. Bind off is normally a knitting term or a Tunisian term. So we're going to do one stitch at a time. It's more like crochet in that aspect. So for this one, I'm going to do a slip stitch bind off. And so I'm going to insert my hook behind the vertical bar. I'm going to yarn over and I'm going to slip stitch. I'm pulling mine up to the height of the stitch because I tend to do slip stitches very tight. If you wanted to just go through both, you could, but mine end up too tight and then the project curls at the top. So I pull mine up to the height of the stitch and then I pull through the second part for this to make it the slip stitch. It saves me a little bit of curling. If you're faster and you can do it looser, that's awesome. Okay. You can also do a single crochet here, like you can do a single crochet bind off. I don't like the look of it with the Tunisian simple stitch. It just changes the look of the vertical bars. It spreads them out a little bit when you do a single crochet here. So I like the slip stitch better. So we are going to just work this slip stitch all the way across. And like I said, I am going to do a Q&A every Tuesday at noon. If you have any questions, it doesn't have to be Tunisian, pattern related. It doesn't even have to be my pattern. I get a lot of questions. I mean a lot. Probably most of the emails I get are questions about other people's patterns. I don't know why, but over the years, that is just a thing. People email me all the time asking me for help with other people's patterns. They text me. Some of my friends will text me and say, I got this pattern from so-and-so and I cannot figure it out, or it's wrong, or so yeah, even somebody else's pattern, I am all for helping you. I love that kind of thing. I'm a problem solver by nature, so feel free. And we'll do it as a Q&A so that I can go live and maybe it'll help somebody else. If I get no questions at all, then we will do another Tunisian, or maybe we can do both depending on how fast I can talk. Okay, so we get to the end. We're on the last bind off, and just do it the same. Do it behind both stitches, but bind it off. And then you have your finished, I mean, obviously yours is going to be a lot bigger, but I love the look of this. I think it's really, really good. This is what it looks like in a solid color, and I did this striped stuff for somebody specific. I figured I'd use up some cotton I had and send somebody a little gift when I'm done with these. So if you have any questions, I'm going to post this in the group. I recorded this live after I recorded this from my phone after I went live because the live kept cutting out so bad. And I will upload this to the group and I will just put it in the comments from the live that this is the updated version so that the audio is a little better. If you have any questions before Friday, let me know. Otherwise, we will chat on Friday morning or Friday at noon. Talk to you later.